playing maze. System water bottles and Gatorade. Gotta say, a lot of people want me to fade away. Dedicated, keep my game sharp as a razor blade. Day to day, with my gold teeth in the paper fade. Playing maze. System water bottles and Gatorade. Gotta say, a lot of people want me to fade away. Dedicated, keep my game sharp as a razor blade. Day to day, with my gold teeth in the paper fade. As I'm rolling this blunt up, I sit and think about the come up. Hit your chick with that lumber, she somewhere deep in the slumber. I ain't Stevie, no wonder. I had a foggy list. When you pimp, it's a hit or miss. Vernacular snapping, she breaking bridges to get a kiss. Look what done happened. Her nosy friend and got in a mix. She know I'm a hitter too. If she tell him, I'm plead the fifth. Playing maze, system water bottles and Gatorade. Gotta say, a lot of people want me to fade away. Dedicated, keep my game sharp as a razor blade. Day to day, with my gold teeth in the paper fade. Playing maze, system water bottles and Gatorade.
The Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Rick flaring on us, flaring on us. We Rick flaring on us. You talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Rick flaring on us, flaring on us. Yeah, we Rick flaring on us, flaring on us. It's apparent these girls staring. I'm Rick flaring, gold across my chest. I'm fresh to death. I'm Paul Bearing, not at all scary. When I open like Betty Wops and find to these circles that's going in like a carry shot. I'm going in like a Mary Pop off that Mary Crop at the top flow at the Marriott. So questioning me is like questioning you. See, we the best dressed, so come and get blessed with the crew. Not one but two, different ways to slaughter your crew. Committed tat across the chest, I guess she blessed with the truth. People want to see them checks, representation of proof. Living through my elders trying to resonate to the youth. But ain't nothing to get my flash on. Longevity is heavily embedded in my melanin. Layman terms, I last long. My grind repetitive, I'm smoother than real silk. Lyrical cash cow who can't cry over spilled milk. We in here. You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Rick flaring on us, flaring on us. We Rick flaring on us. You talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Rick flaring on us, flaring on us. We Rick flaring on us, flaring on us. This ain't no normal situation, this preparation with greatness. Industry full of fakeness, it's really up for the taking. See, life is what happened to you.
Peace. Back at it again with another interesting topic brought to you by the brother Logic. We got DQ in the building. We got Miss Tiffany French in the building. I would be remiss if I didn't allow her to introduce herself first. But before we get to that, we're discussing fake activism and woke blacks. I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation more than anything. We want people to join the panel, hit the link early and often. We just had a conversation yesterday that kind of spurred this show. It's a bit spurred a moment. We're going to rock out for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I think it's a conversation worth having because even in politics, you know, I'm going to show where these words come up in the presidential election, the presidential campaign, Ron DeSantis in Florida. So I think it's going to be a very interesting topic. So panelists, unmute your mics and introduce yourself. Tiffany, if you're there, you can go first, introduce yourself. Logic, cam up. This is your show. Peace to you,
Hey,
Adrian. What's going on, G? What's up, Miss French?
Okay. Hey, I'm Tiffany. I'm just here to listen to the panel and engage into the discussion or whatnot. So I do have a YouTube channel myself, which is Tiffany89.
Give us the link.
Huh?
Put the link in the back chat. I'll put it in the regular chat.
Okay, I'll do that. Yes, so I stand on the principle of like Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. I love dealing with history, dealing with science, and certain current events. That's me. So But I'm all ears, so I'm willing to like have a dialogue and just pretty much listen for the most part.
Fire, fire. DQ, I'll let you introduce yourself last. Logic, DQ, you in the building? You might have stepped away. Logic, go ahead and jump in there.
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Okay,
Give me
go ahead.
give me 1 second.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You sound like you eating.
You caught me off guard. I thought DQ was going first, but yeah,
Oh God.
it's logic, man. You know, just cool and chilling, trying to spread the good vibes and hopefully, make some kind of online contribution to the advancement of Black folk here in America, and maybe we can even stir some crowd participation enough to where we can get to the bottom of why we actually need to call our movement Pan African, right? Especially if the focus of our movement is making advancements in our local environment here in America. I feel like there's a big problem with that, right? Because the fact that you even have to consider the word Africa inside of your movement, other than your genetics, right? Your movement is based in Africa. Your advancement or your tools that you would even use to advance your local environment isn't in Africa, right? We're talking about things that are completely happening here in the United States of America, and and that's a big problem. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it almost promotes an idea that we're actually supposed to, oh shit, that we're actually supposed to be seeking our solutions, our resources from another place when we have all the tools available for us to do it right here in America. I mean, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So hopefully, I can actually, uh, uh, incite the crowd to want to come up and participate. You know, and I want you to leave here feeling some kind of way, whether it's mad with me, mad with the current establishment as far as the plan that we actually have put together to be successful. Something, right? I want you to leave out of this conversation feeling something, and let's go ahead and do it. I'm ready.
So I want to discuss, and then DQ, let me know when you're ready. I want to discuss just the conversation of woke, because I think a lot of people think it's just like just like a regular term, and it doesn't have certain connotations, right? And woke, I guess we'll go from that first. How woke went from a social justice term to a pejorative favored by some conservatives. Now, this is 2022 at the CPAC conference. Um, Once upon a time, many decades ago, woke was a term used mostly in Black spaces to underscore the importance of keeping a close eye on patterns of racism and oppression. Language evolves, though, and sometimes in sinister ways. Over the years, woke has lived other lives as a rallying cry against police brutality, as an ironic meme, and now as an imprecise term used to decry progressive action. Consider that just this month, Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis' Stop Woke Act went into effect. Among other things, the legislation is designed to quash instruction about race in schools and in the workplace. So, to chart the transformation of woke, they started a series. I actually watched this series, United Shades of America with Kamau Bell. And there's some early instances. They started talking about it in 1962 in an op-ed. It's one of the earliest times. If you woke, you dig it. Woke is tied to the idea of specific awareness of mechanisms of anti-blackness. Wow. It's more about the directive to be awake. In the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, a Pan-Africanist, published in 1923, we see the phrase, "Wake up, Ethiopia, wake up, Africa, and let us work towards one glorious end of a free, redeemed, and mighty nation." So, my question to the panel is this: how has woke become a misused term? How has what's up, DQ? How would you say woke has gone from something? Okay, well, first here's the first question: do we think that the word woke or the ideology of being woke, do we believe that that's useful? Let's start with you, DQ.
Um, in certain ways it is, certain ways it isn't. Um, in the new age, woke has become a trend. It's become a trendy buzzword. Excuse me. Meaning it's been applied to very surface level things. Like if you just know something that the other layperson doesn't know, you assume to be woke. I know we look at woke as consciousness, having a certain type of consciousness, having a certain type of awareness of yourself and where you stand um, within this ecosystem of life. But most people just tend to put it towards some trendy conspiracy theory type viewpoints. But that's how I look at it.
And y'all welcome to jump in to Tiffany, Logic, either one.
I totally agree with that. I would add on to it, right?
Hey,
Because
hey,
like,
hold on. You gonna have to finish your dinner, G. We doing a show, bro. You gonna have to actually like participate. We are here for you.
I'm not chewing. It still sounds like I'm chewing.
It sounds like you huffing and chewing at the same
No,
time.
I ain't chewing. So yeah, I completely agree with what he's saying right there, right?
Peace to
And
you, Trev.
I think that where it starts to become unhealthy is when you start to, just because you are now woke. Like I think once you take the step into activism, right, that's when the lines are starting to get blurred as far as what a woke person actually is, right? And I think in our community, right, it looks like I see a lot of people who do a little bit more than just woke, right? I think I see them sit there and ruminate, which is a word that I've brought up a bunch of times, and I don't think we probably give it enough understanding, or at least proper respect. Like we sit there and we dwell on these issues and these problems for so long that I think it starts to take a toll on us in a way to where we almost get a level of despair out of being woke, right? So, like, let me give you an example. You said that you were in sales. I definitely was in sales for like 10 years, so you probably can relate to this. I did sales for so long, trained in sales for so long, that I begin to see other situations that weren't necessarily sales encounters as sales encounters, right? I began to like see the world almost, and I ain't gonna say exclusively through this lens, but like a lens that I wound up not being able to turn off. And if even at times it becomes uncomfortable. Like I wish I didn't see it that way all the time. But it's like something looming in the back of my perspective of how I look at things. And that isn't, I would hate to feel like I am not allowing myself to experience enough joy in my life to where it's not allowing me to focus on anything other than the ills of my social environment, because I know that they're there. I'm not sitting there ignoring them, but I certainly don't want them in the forefront of my mindset, and I think that could be damaging. And I think that could be, it probably does, seem a little gloomy, and can bring that little level of despair into what you're actually doing and talking about. For sure.
So what is Trail says device not connected. Something ain't clicking right. You got to get him right, Logic, when you get a chance. Um, so when you say fake woke or when you say selective outrage, sum that up for the audience. What do you mean when you say that quote unquote fake woke? What is fake woke to you? Give me an example. Like, not no, you don't got to put a name or nothing like that, but give an example of what you would consider fake woke in 2024. Welcome to peace to everybody in the chat. Appreciate you for checking it out. Go ahead, G. You're on mute.
A very large percentage of YouTube Pan Africans, Great example of fake woke people. And what I mean by that is, they have all of this enthusiasm and no real plan, right? I can understand the enthusiasm, but once you start trying to convince me that you have an idea that either we all should follow, because that's what Pan Africanism is. It's all about solidarity. It's about having some agenda that we all should be getting behind, right? And once you claim that you have something like that, and then we go ahead and flush out the ideas, and at the very bottom of it, it's it's just what you read about Marcus Garvey. And but that's what his plan is. Your plan is to create a nation. So if your plan is to create a nation, you ever sit back and think about what can be problematic about that? Maybe you now have to acquire resources like other nations do. Now you have to defend your resources like other nations do. I mean, that's a part of being, a nation. You know what I'm saying? Now you got a flag. Now you got your own currency. Well, what's it based off of? You're gonna have your own. You're gonna have a new nation, and your money is based off the American dollar. Well, you still you still benefiting the American government. You haven't gone anywhere. You haven't even done anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? So at some point, the goal seems to be so lofty and way out there, to where like that can't be a plan, right? Like it's so unrealistic. You can't even begin to tell me that that's your idea, or if that's the only possible way that you can see liberation is becoming your own superpower and then going to war against colonialism, because existing countries ain't even doing that, and you going to create a country and then do it with no resources. And no.
Okay, hold on one second. Tiffany Friend, I don't know if you how much of that you heard, but do you have any thoughts on what the brother Logic is saying?
I only listened to part of it, but
Mm-hmm.
I can understand his position where he's coming from. Because we have to understand, as I mentioned earlier to you, that politics is a cutthroat thing. It's very cutthroat. So,
Right.
you know, we're not going to be able to implement all the ideas that we want. You know what I'm saying? Because we have to understand the political structure in different countries and how they operate and whatnot. But I believe that um you know, we should try, or at least, I don't know, is my screen frozen up? Okay. Yeah, we should try, and we should be able to, connect and network with people that are pretty much like minded in a sense. And then, the fact that we got people here in America, you know what I'm saying? I mean, because let's face it, we're all descendant of slaves, all right? But, we got those who come from the Caribbean, you know what I'm saying? And, in other places. So, we should at least try to, make that the goal, but you're not going to be able to network with everybody. We got to face that reality. We know that, because everybody's
Right.
not going to be on the same page. So it is what it is. But you just have to, you have to make it possible. For me, I Africanism or black nationalism. I don't consider myself to be a Garveyite, although I do respect what Garvey did and his whole goal, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
consider myself to be a Garveyite. Um, yeah, but I think that that's important. And also with the concept about woke, I think, yeah, it has become overrated. It's become a trend. Yeah, it's become a very trend. It's a trend for the wrong reason. Let's put it like that, because that gives opportunity for individuals to come in and try to scam people or take advantage of those, especially those who may not know enough about history or know enough about any type of information. So, they start to get on that bandwagon. So here's my go-to right here. This is what I can do. So that's one of the reasons why people like Polite became very popular, because people jumped on the woke bandwagon and didn't do their research on individuals like him. So yeah, I think that it becomes very overrated, and I think that people just doing it because it's a trend, and they're not really passionate about it, or they're not very sincere. So
Okay, hits. What's going on? What's going on, G? Hits in the building. Owner at Tri Media. Currently trying to boost his education, and literally let's say we got our elder, the person that we listen to, the person we follow. So
Hi.
hits what's going on,
Activism.
bro? Yeah,
What's
there we
up?
go.
What's
going
up?
on, G?
I'm gonna peace to the chat. Peace to everybody on the channel. What's up, Logic? What's up,
What's up,
DQ?
man?
What's up, Tiffany? I'm gonna try to help
hello.
Montrell out with his situation, and I'm gonna listen in, see if we can get his device connected.
Yeah, I
Oh,
hit
get
him up. I
Trell
told
right.
him to
Okay.
I heard him. I told him to restart his phone. Maybe that might have been a thing because he backed out and came back in last time. But yeah. I mean, I actually I like what Tiffany said right there, right? And I think that's see, like I think that the man, and I have to base a lot of this off the conscious community because that's where I think that's where I see a lot of Pan Africanism. I don't see when I go to work or when I'm even if I've changed jobs, like I don't I don't see people in the real world repping Pan Africanism. They may more or less even know what it is. You know what I'm saying? So when I see it, right, like I absolutely agree with you want to align yourself with people who think like you, right? And that does not necessarily exclude other groups of people because of their color or because of where they're located. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're trying to find like-minded people um to reach a common goal, even if some of those goals are more related to like your societal issues, that may not necessarily be a boundary that you need to have in order to find like-minded people. They may not have to be in Africa. They may not have to be African American. They could be Chinese, right? Chinese people actually did a lot of co-opting of Pan African ideas, and use the influence of Pan Africanism in their struggles with how do you say inequality in America. You get what I'm saying? So it's not they're willing to take pages out of our books, and why should we limit ourselves to only this small body. I mean, say small body of work, but this one particular body of work when we can be exploring other ideas and maybe rehashing or revamping other ideas. It doesn't have to just come out of this one basket. There's nothing noble about going through life and admitting at the end, oh, I nobody helped me. Well, there's no extra achievement for that.
Y'all can once a person stops talking, y'all can jump in. I mean, I'll host it for the most part, but one of the things I will say in regards to quote unquote activism, I try my best. I mean, I'm not necessarily at a point in my life. I participated in the George Floyd protests here, the George Floyd marches and stuff here, the Ahmaud Arbery marches and stuff here. I mean, I do it when I can. I don't do enough, as probably we all say. But the one thing I don't like, I don't like, if I was to say, I don't like the criticism of why isn't this person doing this? Because the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what do you do? A lot of my efforts, and I was taught this way, was be the change that you want to see and create the world that you want to live in. So what I do is I don't really have a lot of complaints all the time. I kind of take that energy I was going to use to complain and put an effort towards making it be what I want it to be. So a lot of times when people are saying, like, similar to that conversation last night, you're saying, oh, it's so terrible and why aren't other people doing something? That's such a defeatist attitude. You know what I mean? Oh, this is going to get interesting. This is going this this is going to get real interesting. Mute your mic, son, child. The oh god, the I just it's just such I don't believe that I'm all powerful, but I do believe that I can be the change that I want to see. So I'm gonna introduce Sunchild. Sunchild, take about 30 seconds to introduce yourself, and then we get back into the topic, and then you get into the conversation.
Peace, peace. No introduction necessary. I'm just listening. I didn't expect to be in the live. I was just looking for a link to listen in, but I didn't get one. So I'll just sit here and listen. If I do have anything to add, I will. I appreciate the introduction, and peace to everyone on the panel and everyone in the chat.
Peace,
Yeah.
peace, 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 peace.
What started
I
this
don't believe that
conversation?
for a second.
What'd you say? What'd you say? Hits.
I said, what started this conversation? Like, that's
Well,
just so I.
the
It's
beginning of the conversation was last night. We had a conversation about we were talking about Pan Africanism, and there were a couple of people that thought it was useful. There were a couple of people that thought it was quote unquote useless because of colonialism. Like when you do achieve the unity of Africans on the continent and Africans in the diaspora, then what? That's kind of where it came from. And then we got into a conversation about Haiti and the position that it's in. It's routinely rated as one of the worst countries. And I'm talking about as far as demographics, economics, political stature in the world. And we were talking about the African Union, because the African Union is a major part, if not the biggest part, of Pan Africanism. But one of their main focus is, you join the African Union. We have these conversations about helping you. You get access to this, access to that, right? In a nutshell, I'm pretty sure it's a lot deeper than that. But we had someone say, that Haiti being at the position that it's in, and it being so related to Africa and the diaspora, that they applied technically to get into the African Union and they weren't allowed access. And there were people presenting an argument that that the African Union should have just basically given Haiti access and membership, or at least observer status, and that they didn't, and that where would they be in regards to it. And then it kind of conversation switched to, well, screw what the African Union could do, what can you do per se. And then it kind of got, it kind of demoralized, but then we brought it back because the issues that Haiti needs as far as help, we definitely agree. They are infrastructure, and ain't a can of green beans in the mail. So I agree with Sunchild on that point. But it was just a figurative conversation, and Logic was pretty much saying that as far as Pan Africanism, is basically a useless. It's a good term, but that there are more people that are fake woke and proud to say that I am a Pan Africanist versus actually living the virtues of being a Pan Africanist, or quote unquote being woke. So that's where the conversation.
What do you think of that, Hits? Because I think it's a little deeper than that too, though. But let me hear what you got to say about that, Hits.
So sounds like one side of the table, Pan Africanism, and is woke or equals woke, or that's the woke side of the table. And the other side is that it's not a realistic endeavor, right? If that's what I'm hearing. Because I'm new to Pan Africanism as far as, on the internet, all of the different definitions people have for it. I don't know if there's a written definition. I actually never looked, to see if there was a definition for it. But I think two things could be true at the same time. Like I don't. And far as the African Union goes, I thought that was just the countries on the continent. So if you weren't on the continent, I didn't think you could be a part of, like, the
That's
union.
factual. That's part of the rules of membership. You have
Okay,
to be
okay,
geographically located on the continent, but you can get observer status.
gotcha,
But
gotcha.
they
That's
still
where
didn't
Haiti
give
would
that
come
to
in.
Haiti either. Yeah, but they didn't give that to them either.
Okay, wow. Let me read: fake selective outrage in the Black community. I would take selective over fake, and I think a lot of the selective is just the time, effort, and or money people have to contribute. We all can't, wake up and fight every battle. There's it's just too much going on. But we all can contribute in our own way. Um, and then outrage, like how far does that go? That someone's going to boycott a product, that they're going to quit their job. Are they going to be online? Their face and their name. That happens a lot. People's private lives, their private opinions get put online, and that may affect certain people's jobs. You know, um, so I don't know. I think we narrow down different topics that we can deal with it a little bit better. That's where
So
I'm at.
good. So Sunchild, do you have any hope before you go, Logic? Sunchild, just let me know whenever you want to come in, because I know I don't want to represent your argument per se, but I know you. I respected what you were saying enough that we actually decided to do a show about it, because I know that all black people don't think the same. All black people are not the same. So there are some people that believe it's useful. There are some people that believe it's useless. Fetty, what's up, G? That some people think it's useless, some people think it's useful, and I applaud anybody that's willing to have the conversation about the subject. So,
Well, if I can add anything really briefly, it's if we can study what are the accomplishments of Pan-Africanism, I think that might be enlightening. I'm not sure if people are aware of what the accomplishments of Pan-Africanism have been. You mentioned the Organization of African Unity is one accomplishment of Pan-Africanism, but I think perhaps even more importantly, we can see Pan-Africanism having a major effect on the ending of slavery in many ways, and we can look into that. And as far as moral values across the continent, keeping moral, cultural values across the continent and in the diaspora have been affected through an African unity and Pan Africanism. But I would also like to say, I think we look at Pan Africanism as if it's somehow on its own in a bubble, but there is also Pan Europeanism, Pan Americanism, Pan Arabism. There's a bunch of different Pan isms that exist, and they are useful, and they've made great accomplishments for their respective continents or people. And I think Pan Africanism should be seen in that light as well, and not just singled out as being useless. So those are the two things I would like to say for now, is that we can perhaps do a research on what exactly have been the accomplishments of Pan-Africanism and how useful has it been. And I think that would be enlightening. And we should look at it from the light of other Pan-isms such as Europeanism, Americanism. What are their accomplishments and how do they compare to the accomplishments of Pan-Africanism?
Okay, so I wouldn't I wouldn't dare make the mistake and say Pan Africanism is useless, right?
me,
I understand that when you look at the history of Pan Africanism and what it actually accomplished, it actually made a very large contribution to the civil rights movement. It made a big contribution as far as us actually even having something like an NAACP. It did make some very major contributions. So what I'm talking about is this modern version of Pan Africanism that we have kind of come to know from YouTube more like, because we're not as familiar with the 1930s 1950s version of Pan Africanism. That's not what we see every day. That's not what we're exposed to on a at all, pretty much, right? Only person I really hear talking about that kind of stuff is Marcus. He's a very unique individual, very well read. I got to give him his props. You know what I'm saying? So and through him, I can absolutely say I've gained a lot more respect for it, at least from a what it started out and what it intended to be, and then how it has become co-opted by these newer movements of people who may not have like the same um, organization and plan as far as those other people. So that's really more of what I'm talking about, right? So I wouldn't go that far, and that would be a mistake to say Pan Africanism is completely useless, right? So when we're looking at it in a modern sense, we're talking about Pan Africanism, right? The very first question that would need to be asked is what role is Africa playing in whatever your plan is? Because for them, their African Union specifically is for African countries. They are not designed. They're not designed to intervene in American social issues. That's not why they formed an African Union. That African Union might employ some Pan African ideas, mainly the one that speaks about solidarity among African nations, as far as them having like a battle against colonialism, but it's absolutely not talking about social advancement for African Americans. That's just not what they're talking about. And that's the huge misconception about why it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to be beating the drum of Pan Africanism when Pan Africanism isn't even benefiting us African Americans, right? Like I want to be able to go into the
Hey,
examples
do me
like
a favor. Do me a favor. 1 second. I just want you to say that last sentence one more time.
it's not benefiting the African American. That's I said I think I might have said a whole bunch of other things before that, but that's the bottom line to it.
No, I
It
don't
it
know. Just when you make strong statements, I like you to, something that
it's
eventually you're gonna have to stand on. I like for you to repeat it for the
I'm
audience.
cool. I
That's
can
all.
definitely stand on that. It's
It's
absolutely not.
YouTube. You don't have to stand on it too hard. Don't worry.
It's not
You ain't gonna
benefiting the
lose your
African
job. You're
American,
good.
bro. When we experience police brutality in America, what role does Africa play in contributing to solutions to police brutality? What role did Africa play in creating solutions for the Flint water crisis? What role did Africa play when we had a conversation about the 1968 Housing Act? I mean, what role did Africa play in our civil rights advancement here in America? Did they demand that America pass a bill that gave African Americans their human rights in America? I mean that's what we're actually talking about. So when we look at it like that, why is it called Pan African? I mean, the word African almost seems like that might seem a little bit more useless than what Pan Africanism has accomplished over the years, because where it started out is absolutely not where it's at today. It's not a. I mean, it started out. Let's start there, right? It definitely started out in a movement that's based on solidarity for all people who experienced slavery and colonialism all over the world, right? Great idea. I love the agenda, right? So as we advance another almost 100 years, let's say 80, 90 years, now I want to know what role does Africa play outside of our genetics in accomplishing that here in America? And I don't see it. I don't see. I mean, recent monetary contributions. I kind of fail to see it. I don't
Land
see.
your plane.
Africa
Land your plane now.
I don't see Africa stepping up in any major or insignificant way as far as that. We're talking about an ideology, not necessarily intervention from an African organization or country.
Anybody want to speak to that, or Sunchild, Tiffany? Anybody want to speak to what he said?
Um, yeah, I wanted to say something. Now, I wanted to piggyback off what he was saying about the accomplishment of Pan Africanism. I also want to speak about how the new Republican of Africa helped push the HR 40 bill into legislation. And it's been around since 1989, since the late John Conyers, who was the congressman,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Definitely familiar.
yeah. And so you had people like Queen Mother Moore that played that part in there. Now I understand he does have some points as far as like, you know, what has African contribute as far as economics and whatnot. Again, goes back to the concept of how politics is a dirty business. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that there are individuals over there that's basically saying they don't want to have anything to do with America per se. But if you're looking at that economic structure and looking at what they're going through over there in their country, it's kind of hard to just actually try to, you know, give aid to another country when there's so much corruption going on within your country. As far as like police brutality is concerned, I mean, you know, as far as they're concerned, they brought awareness to the police brutality that was going on here in America. They became aware of that. And it's not only America that experiences police brutality, it's also in other nations, you know what I'm saying, in other countries, in some part of African countries, and even some part of European countries. There are police brutality. I'm talking about, you know, black people in these European countries that's dealing with police brutality. Black
Hmm.
people in African countries like Nigeria, for example, they had like a big old protest. I think it was a few years back where they were dealing with police brutality in their country. Okay, now you looking at probably what about good 90% or 95% African people, black people over there. But you wonder, well, how is that they can deal with police brutality? Well, we gotta look at the situation of classism, and let's go back to colonialism. You know what I'm saying? The colonized mentality they have. So that plays a factor. But I'm saying this to say that I don't think it's a case where they don't want to help or they don't want to do anything. It's like they got their hands tied for the most part, and what can you really do? You know, when you got corrupted politicians doing things in your country and trying to take over your resource or taking away your rights or whatever the case may be, what can you really do? You're like, the only thing you can do is bring some form of acknowledgement. You know, like this is a global thing. This is what's going on. But you can't really physically do nothing per se. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a really it's the same goal for here. You know, we can't really do much over there. So our hands are tied. So what can we really do? We can't stop the you know, the corruption going on in their country when we got problems over here. So it's like our hands are tied. You know,
Let
that's
me. A great point, Tiffany. Great point. And by the way, follow Tiffany French's channel, Tiffany89 on YouTube. The link is in the chat. We'll put it back in the chat in a second. You know, that's kind of like Pan Africanism. We all eat together, man. We all support each other. We all make sure that, you know, that everybody has a view, and we all can make money or build or just get our thoughts out. I think that's very important. So I put in Chat GPT. Now I want to be clear because I'm following Hit's rules. This isn't my Chat GPT. I'm not logged in. And this is 3.5 because it's not mine. So I know it's not quite a German engineering. It's something else. But the accomplishments of Pan-Africanism to African Americans in the United States, right? So it says, certainly, here's some of the key accomplishments of Pan-Africanism to African Americans in the United States. Cultural identity. Pan-Africanism has helped African Americans reconnect with their African heritage. The Civil Rights Movement. Pan-Africanism provided intellectual and ideological support to the Civil Rights Movement in the United States. Leaders like Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois, or Dubois, some people say, inspired activists like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, who advocated for racial equality, justice, and empowerment. Now, I won't get into all of the other ones, but I'll say the names at least. Solidarity with African independence movements, cultural exchange and collaboration, political advocacy, like Tiffany was talking about, education and awareness. So it closed in saying, overall, Pan-Africanism has played a significant role in empowering African Americans, fostering cultural pride, promoting civil rights, and building solidarity with people of African descent around the world. Sunchild, did you want to get in on that?
Yeah, I would just like to add. Let me read something as well. An article: After the death of George Floyd, Africa mobilizes against police violence. If the death of George Floyd has sparked a worldwide protest movement, Africa is not to be outdone. In Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa, demonstrators are taken to the streets. Others would like to see their leaders tackle the issue more firmly in solidarity with their African American brothers. Um, so there is that, and that is a Pan African movement. I think in reference to how Pan Africanism can affect us more directly, I think we can talk about the potentialities for Pan Africanism as well. How can it? Not that does it, if or if you are at the point of saying that it does not, then the next stage is we can discuss what are the potentialities, like we were talking about with in regards to Haiti. How what condition would Haiti have been in? What would have been the benefits of for Haiti with regards to Pan Africanism and the OAU?
Okay, no problem. Y'all have a conversation. I'm not gonna keep adding people in. I'm gonna jump in when it gets to where y'all can't manage each other. That's my job. It's not to regulate what y'all saying. So step in. Y'all could talk to each other like a regular conversation.
I thought he dropped off. Let's see if he
No, he's still there. Logic, step in.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me? Am I
Yeah,
okay?
we heard. Yeah, we
Yeah,
heard you.
I hear you. I hear you. So they
Okay.
raised their fists up in the air, in the sign, in the in the symbolism of solidarity, right?
No,
That's what that
not
boils
just
down
that,
to.
brother. You have to consider what was the effect. Was that international movement against police brutality in America, was that effective? Did that help at all? And if you're going to say no, then we would I would probably disagree with you. But what it's saying is that Africa was not to be outdone. Was that effective? Did that have an effect? I'm sure it did, because international impression always has some type of effect on any type of government, the way they're seen outside of America. So,
I'm
I
actually
believe
not.
that.
I'm actually
Well,
not trying
I
to.
think that would be just your opinion, brother. But go ahead, I'm listening.
It can't be my opinion. It's really your opinion. I just restated what you said. You said they raised their fists in the air in symbolisms of solidarity. I just repeated what you said. So I mean, like, I'm not saying that that's not a contribution, but I mean, thinking about it, that I mean, what a contribution is that? I mean, that's incredible, right? I mean, they risked it all for the African American at that point, if that's how you really want to put it. So what my big point is that other than creating the ideology and it looking like it maybe help strategize here and there, right? Other than that, I'm looking for Africa's participation, right? I'm looking for some sort of collaborated effort between Africa and 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 these other movements, right? When you look at the Pan African movement in America, you can find contributions towards civil rights. But when you look at Africa's contributions into the civil rights, it gets a lot less detailed. There's not very much that you can go off of. And you give me this modern example of they are now aware of our struggles and they raise their fists up in the air. Well, I kind of like I think that you can find other people across the world doing similar things, not just in Africa. I mean that's what I'm talking about. I'm looking for some kind of collaboration with the NAACP. Like are they stepping in? Are they providing funds? Are they providing protection? Are they I mean something. I mean you've given me you give it like I would say this, right? If I were to proclaim myself to be an activist, and the one activity that you can document me doing is raising my fist in the air, I think that you would call me a very inactive activist.
Well, I think you're
you would
picking
say
that
my
out from. I
participation
think
would be
I think
very
you're picking
limited.
that
Yeah,
out from.
let him get in, Logic. Let him get in, Logic.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
That was
I
a
think.
great line, though. That was a good line. It
Yeah,
action packed.
I think you're picking that out from a list of different things that it says that Africa, based on Pan Africanism, has contributed to the civil rights movement, the end of slavery in America. Those are things that Pan Africanism has affected. The results of the police brutality in America and the international protests, including in Africa. If you're saying that had no effect whatsoever on the outcome, I would probably disagree with you. And we can look into that some more. But again, what we're looking at is there's talks for about a sixth region where the diaspora becomes an actual member of the African Union, and their representation would become more effective and powerful with respect to the diaspora. And that's where the potentialities we can discuss what would be the potentials there, and how much more can Pan-Africanism do for Africans in the diaspora? And that's where the discussion is. And that's why we can say Pan-Africanism is a movement in progress. It's not something, it's not complete. It is something that is in progress. And a part of that progress is to unite the continent by way of the OAU, which is sort of an accomplishment, but then you can also unite them with the diaspora, which is a work in progress, and then we can look at the potentialities and what can be done at that point. But even without that, we can see in what ways Pan-Africanism has been effective. And you can't just look at one thing and just use the soundbite about throwing their fists in the air. I think that's rather, I don't know if that's rather a shallow viewpoint.
I mean, I'm only giving the contributions. I'm only evaluating the contributions that you told me that they made. I mean, that's all I can go off of. I mean, I've
Well,
kind of did some research today.
you only mentioned one. What do you think of its accomplishments as far as the independence of African nations, the end of slavery, their contributions towards the civil rights movement in America? You didn't mention any of that. You only focused on one aspect that I mentioned, was that they protested the George Floyd incident.
Actually, I
So why
did
don't you
mention
tell us
those.
some more?
I did mention those, right? So the first thing we got to do is separate African American Pan Africanism from the African participation in Pan Africanism in America, right? That's the first things that we have to separate. I'm aware enough that the Pan African movement in America has made contributions in America. I'm challenging you to give me contributions from Africa to Pan Africanism in America. That's where I'm at. So like if we are struggling this hard to find contributions that are more significant than a I'm guessing a picture of people that chose to line up for a photo op of them raising their fists in the air. Why do we need it to be Pan African, right? Why isn't this just some collective African American movement? That's where this is a perfect example of how I see it being unnecessary to call it Pan Africanism, because now I need to blur the lines between, does Africa even participate? Or maybe I need to glorify, excuse me, a photo op that some small group of Africans, some students at a college, they chose to participate in, rather than actually see the receipt, or actually see where this African government body or this African organization or company of something is funding some major movement that is actually leading to change in America. Now I can see the connection between Africa and Pan-Africanism, because to me what it almost sounds like you're saying is that Africa needs the American for Pan-Africanism, because Africa isn't necessarily contributing to the ills of African Americans in America.
May I
But we're
read?
you
I'm
other than their
sorry.
genetics. Go ahead. I'm finished.
Oh, okay. May I read something to you? This is something I had to look up. All right. So to answer your question about what has Africa made a contribution to Pan Africanism, it says, and you can find this on GPT. Right, it says Africa has made significant contribution to the development and advancement of Pan-Africanism, which is a movement advocating for the unity, solidarity, and empowerment of people of African descent worldwide. Here are some key contributions. One is intellectual leaderships. African thinkers and leaders have played a pivotal role in shaping the ideology and philosophy of Pan-Africanism. Figures like Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, if I'm mispronouncing the name, please forgive me, and Patrice Lumumba articulated visions of African unity and liberation from colonialism, inspiring Pan-Africanist movements across the continent and beyond. So, number two, independence movements. The struggle for independence from colonial rule in Africa was deeply intertwined with the ideals of Pan-Africanism. African nation achieving independence served as a powerful example of self-determination and inspired African Americans and other people of African descent in their own quest for civil rights and equality. Number three, Pan-African institution. African countries have been instrumental in establishing and supporting Pan-African institution aimed at fostering unity and cooperation among African nations and the African diaspora. Example includes the Organization of African Unity, now the African Union, and the Pan-African Parliament. And then number four, it says hosting Pan-African conferences. African nation has hosted several Pan-African congresses, which provided platforms for intellectual activists and leaders from across the African diaspora to convene, discuss common challenges, and strategize for collective action. And then number five, diplomatic support. African countries have provided diplomatic support and solidarity to liberation movements and struggle for civil rights around the world. They have advocated for the rights of people of African descent in international forums and supported initiatives aimed at addressing systematic racism and inequality. Did you hear me?
I actually appreciate that because
Definitely heard you.
one of the things that I'm not, this is not going to be conscious community kind of stuff all the
Right,
time, but it's going
right,
to be, I appreciate sources, and that's kind of the things, like when you make bold statements that Pan-Africanism, not you per se, but logic, when you say things like Pan-Africanism doesn't benefit Africans or African Americans on the continent, right? I mean, Pan-Africanism does not benefit Black people in the United States. One of the things that you're always going to run into is that's kind of like an absolute statement. So what's going to happen is, of course, there's ways that it has happened. So it's inevitable. But I think your overarching point, I don't want to miss that. But let me say peace to the chat. Peace to you, Adrian. You made it a hot line. I made it a hot song from the GOAT, Jay-Z, who would never shoot a security guard in Canada, nor anybody in Rockefeller would ever attempt to do some madness like that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Marcus asked you a question. Well, let me shout out everybody. Taj, peace to you. Scarab Chronicles. Yeah, Marcus. I told you Marcus was coming for you. Chef,
I can't get away
peace
from
to
him.
you.
That's,
Yeah, you can't
that's
get
my
away from
guy.
Marcus. Not
I
in
can't get away from him.
Pan-Africanism.
Not that I really want
Chef
to, but
Free,
that I can't find a topic where we just can agree on. But
that's
one day
probably
we will.
cheese on burgers. But the peace to Chef Freen and the
Thanks for that too,
Carnivorous
Tiffany.
podcast. Thurman Meredith. I think your name is so cool, by the way, bro. I've been meaning to tell you that. And once again, y'all follow Tiffany89, her YouTube channel. We'll put the link back in the chat in a minute. Like I said, that's a form of Pan-Africanism. We all eat together.
And I want to also
So
say this.
go ahead.
African nation, African countries have allowed African Americans, if they choose to repatriate back into those countries. So, like countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone,
Hey,
just to name a
yes.
few,
What's up?
has allowed
Oh, I don't know.
Africans and African diaspora to repatriate. So I just want to throw that out there.
Okay, dope. Hits, Sunchild, y'all want to speak on it? If not, I'm gonna wait for the dude that don't know how to mute his mic to answer Marcus's question.
No, I was just trying to pull up a map of maybe the most current
No,
uh, African descendant populations like across the globe. Trying to
I'm trying to
find one
find the
now.
question. Hold on.
and
Hey, Logic.
I actually
Hold
heard
on,
everything
Hold on,
Tiffany
Logic.
said too.
Hold
Go
on,
ahead.
Logic. Hold on, Logic.
All
So
right.
Marcus says, ask Logic, has he studied this subject? And I mean, really investigated the subject.
Yeah,
He
I've
thinks
been
that we
studying.
trying.
I've been trying to put this puzzle together. And remember my stance is that I'm looking for the African participation, right? Not just the Pan African contributions to civil rights. I'm not denying that Pan African contributed to, African Americans. I'm looking for the African participation in that movement, right? So I've been chat GPTing it for like still a minute, and I see some contributions here and there, but I definitely don't see like some kind of intervention, like intervening of some kind, right? I mean, there's certainly, I mean, I guess to some degree they are going to be a little handcuffed, but I think that's the major problem, right? That's the major problem with to me with having to call it African, right? Like other than the genetics, this isn't a solution that Africa is like they have they have their own issues over there. Like how can we expect them to decrease the amount of bad neighborhoods in our country or to help us decrease the wealth gap when they're having the same issues that they can't quite figure out? So it's going to be a very difficult question. That's why I'm posing it, right? So that's exactly where I'm at when I'm asking, hey, what what is Africa's role in our movement as African Americans? And when we're calling it Pan African, are we suggesting to our almost psyche, our subconscious, that we are reaching out to Africa for these solutions when all the tools that we've used so far have been right here on American soil? Okay, if you and that was a definitive statement, right? That would be maybe discounting some strategic
30 seconds.
influences, or maybe some I'm not sure, maybe like you mentioned Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, they visited Africa, or was Ghana in specific, and got some some interesting ideas that they brought back to that movement. But that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about some school that they put here in America. We're definitely not looking at some direct result.
Well, I appreciate the information that Miss Tiffany just shared. I think she mentioned 4 or 5 things. I'm not sure if you were listening, but I think those are important. She also talked about the repatriation where they're offering free land to African Americans if they so choose. So there is that outreach, and there are Pan Africanists like we were talking about Dr. Arikana Chilombre, who makes visits here. She was a former representative or ambassador in Africa of the AU, I believe, and she makes a good argument for Pan Africanism as far as it relates to the diaspora. I would also like to say that Pan Africanism is in fact a two-way street. It's not just what Africa can do for the diaspora, but what the diaspora can do for Africa. And I think Pan Africanism began in the diaspora, and it was perhaps the diaspora that influenced Pan Africanism on the continent, and her struggles for independent nations and so on. So it's a two-way street. If you weren't listening, I think Tiffany did a good job of establishing those accomplishments. I'm not sure if you're accepting those, or if you want to, if there's other things that you're looking for. We're not saying that Pan-Africanism can do everything, but you're not looking at what has been presented to you. But also I'd like to say that it's a work in progress, and there are many potentials once a sixth region is established. We can look at a lot more direct things that can be done as well. And just finally, that Pan-Africanism is still a work in progress, but it needs cooperation. and it doesn't need as much the pessimism that would actually strike it down before it's even given feet to stand on.
Go ahead. Does anybody want
Can
to
I
respond to
respond?
that?
Can I
I'm
respond to
trying to
that?
pull up. I'm trying to pull up some information from the Discord. Then I'll jump
If
in.
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
mistaken, Pan Africanism is 80 years old now, right? And we're still not looking at a physical building. We're still not looking at a particular institution. This is still a ideology framework. We still don't necessarily have a solid, like, I mean, maybe you might want to call it a solid definition, but if I ask Marcus what Pan Africanism is and I ask Sunchild what Pan Africanism is, they're gonna give me two different answers, and they're both Pan Africans. So like there's so much. I mean, to call it a work in progress at this point, right? Is at this point you're just being nice about, you know, what it has unfortunately turned into, and I don't like it. I'm not like happy about that.
All right, give me 1 second. We reached the hour mark. As you know, this is a business. Peace to DQ, peace to Logic. This is Tri Media. I'll play a short commercial and we're gonna come right back to you.
Playing maze, system water bottles and Gatorade. Gotta say, a lot of people want me to fade away. Dedicated, keep my game sharp as a razor blade. Day to day, with my gold teeth in the table fade. Playing maze, system water bottles and Gatorade. Gotta say, a lot of people want me to fade away. Dedicated, keep my game sharp as a razor blade. Day to day, with my gold teeth in the table fade.
As I'm rolling this blunt up, I sit and think about the come up. Hit your chick with that lumber, she somewhere deep in the slumber. I ain't Stevie, no wonder. I had a fabulous. When you pimp, it's a hit or miss. Vernacular snapping, she breaking bread just to get a kiss. Look what done happened, her nosy friend and got in a mix. She know I'm a hitter too. If she tell him, I plead the fifth.
Playing maze, system water bottles and Gatorade. Gotta say, a lot of people want me to fade away. Dedicated, keep my game sharp as a razor blade. Day to day, with my gold teeth in the table fade. Playing maze, system water bottles and Gatorade.
So how you take it? Don't get stripped of your knowledge and mentally leave you naked. I like to live otherwise. I'm sorry that I'm fresh to death. I put the polo and apologize. See, black son, we ain't nothing like the mother guys. Quit to socialize, we organize, then we mobilize. Woo! Off the deep end like a scuba diver. And no confusion, just keep it pushing like Uber drivers. Woo! Business fresh just like a supervisor in a Gucci visor. Can't find a smoother rhymer. You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kids stealing, willing dealing, limo jet flying. We Rick flaring on her, flaring on her. We Rick flaring on her, flaring on her. To the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kids stealing, willing dealing, limo jet flying. We Rick flaring on her, flaring on her. We Rick flaring on her, flaring on her.
Peace to you, DQ. Always want to represent. One of the owners here at Tri. Matter of fact, the owner here at Tri Media. Make sure my English is correct. I think this is an interesting conversation. I think it's good when you can have good, clean conversation, even though we all don't agree on every single thing. But peace to you, Ramon, in the building. Marcus wanted me to read something. I think that was kind of poignant from the Discord. I'm gonna pull it up. It's a quote from Martin Luther King on Ghana's liberation. And it's a quote from Dr. King on Ghana's liberation. It says, "This event, the birth of this new nation, will give impetus to oppressed peoples all over the world. I think it will have worldwide implications and repercussions, not only for Asia and Africa, but also for America, so that this gives new hope to me in the struggle for freedom." So I'm assuming that that's more along the lines of what that connection is to Pan-Africanism and how it helped here And I would also be kind of remiss in saying, I don't think I'm doing an exaggeration in saying that Martin Luther King, as far as our freedom here, he was, if not the greatest champion of the civil rights movement, definitely the most recognized. So that's an example of Pan-Africanism affecting us here on the continent. So we're going to go about another hour. I want to read some of the continents. I mean, I said the continents. The comments. Hold on one second. What'd you say?
Would you mind reading that sentence about the new nation and impotence? I want to make sure I heard that right.
Okay, no problem. Let me do some of the things in the chat, and then I'll get right back to it. Peace to you, Ramon, or once Thurman, Tiffany. There are those that do Sheffreen. Sheffreen. All African countries wouldn't even agree to Pan-African. All African countries wouldn't even agree to Pan-Africanism. Yeah, I've seen this in the chat too. You might want to rethink what you said about Pan-Africanism and the time frame, because I've seen two people disagree with the 80 years. I don't know what source. Show me that source you got that from. Scarab Chronicles. I'd say there's the African Union, but they're a bit of a joke lately. And this is Marcus saying 80 years, shaking my head. So once again, peace to the chat. Follow Carnivorous Podcast with Sheffrin, Pseudo Killers, Tiffany89 on YouTube. The link is in the chat. Definitely support. And I'm going to read this quote again. I'm going to let y'all get back at it. The quote is from Dr. King, Martin Luther King, on Ghana liberation. This event, the birth of this new nation, will give impetus to oppressed peoples all over the world. I think it will have worldwide implications and repercussions, not only for Asia and Africa, but also for America, so that this gives new hope to me in the struggle for freedom. In this paper 146. So that sentence is the birth of this new nation will give impetus to oppressed peoples all over the world. You got it?
Doesn't impetus mean helplessness?
The fact that you said it live is amazing, but you can look that look that up. No, listen. You can't just say everything that comes to mind.
I'm looking it up.
Okay, so what does it say? What is impetus?
It says inability to take effective action, helplessness. So the new nation.
I think you missed. Hold on, I think you missed impetus.
Impetus.
Yeah, impetus. Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, impetus. Impotence is when you need the blue pills. I think. No, am I wrong?
Well, I mean, so Marcus's comment. I mean, he's probably right as usual, but I feel like making Pan-Africanism even older than 80 years doesn't. I don't feel like that helps his argument. But you know,
where did you get that number from?
If I can, I'm not sure if Tiffany mentioned the Pan-African. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if she mentioned the Pan-African Council. If you wanted to Google and go to their webpage, it might be informative as well. It's located in Rwanda, and there are different articles there that you can find what they're doing on the continent and abroad. For example, there's one there talks about strengthening ties with HBCUs to foster Pan-African development. And what they're talking about is that there's a lot of development in infrastructure going along in Africa, and they're encouraging HBCU students to take part in that because they are very much underrepresented in the building that's going on. You know, when you go into your local cities, you see all these working going on, but there's no blacks in it. So they're looking at Pan-African is looking into working with HBCUs to employ these graduates from HBCUs to be employed in Africa. And they also talk about a basketball league in Africa, and it mentions that only about 1.2% of students in college basketball go on to the NBA. and they're looking at employing these college students here to participate in the basketball leagues in Africa as well. But if you want to take, they have other ways that they may be contributing perhaps to the HBC.
I think we lost him.
Okay, I thought that was me, but panafricancouncil.org, leadership reimagined. Let's see, our work. So they have the PAC Leadership Network. This is the Pan African Council Leadership's Network Services and Relationship Building, an opportunity source that offers access to a wide network of subject matter experts. What are you doing? Let's see what you're doing. Portfolio or recent work. PAC and Global Impact Industry signed strategic partnerships. The Rio de Janeiro Summit G20. Okay, they were at the G20. Now that's impressive. Wealth and Purpose. I don't trust this guy right here, but Akon, I don't think he's a good representation in my mind, but to each his own. Wealth and Purpose, Philanthropy, forum in Singapore. Okay. They're doing some stuff. Okay, Sunchild. Let's see. Trade, investment, and matchmaking missions. Finding targeted and reliable real-time information in African markets is difficult and costly. The continent to make sound investment decisions and mitigate risks. PAC's missions are designed to reduce the cost and time of finding specific sector information in order to accelerate deal identification, diligence, risk mitigation, and execution. So, I mean, it seems like they're doing a lot in these markets, especially here. So I think you might be losing this one. Climate. Let's see what they're doing. Climate, conservation, and environment. An argument after Sunchild's heart. 1 second. They're telling me their link doesn't work. Okay. So climate conservation and environmental sustainability. Our planet is suffering. The climate is unpredictable. Numerous species are going extinct. Natural resources are being wasted, and many of our ecosystems are under enormous stress. While Africa is responsible for only 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions, at least 65% of the African population is considered to be directly impacted by the effects of climate change and other environmental risks. That is a strong statement. While Africa is responsible for only 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions, 65% of the African population is considered to be directly impacted by the effects of climate change and other environmental risks. I like that. African Climate Summit engagement. Okay.
You like that? What do you mean you like that?
Yeah, I mean, because one of the things that I didn't know, I mean, yeah, this is educational. I didn't realize that they were doing, when you put a face on the actual work, you know what I mean? It's not just somebody saying it. I mean, they're doing some serious work. They got a climate summit engagement, Africa and the Caribbean working together. Sunchild thinks because Haiti isn't allowed in the African Union that they're not working together, but right here, Africa and the Caribbean begin a new era of cooperation. PAC sponsors the Afri-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum. Okay. I mean, I kind of like this. So what say you, Logic? It's looking like you not, it's looking, what is crazy, Adrian? The green wall with climate, yeah, I'm familiar. Peace to you, Mac Rob. Peace said in the building. So what say you in response to that? It seems like you might be wrong, Brother Logic. Pan-African, you're on mute. The Pan-African Council seems to be doing quite a bit.
I mean, I would love to be wrong. If I'm wrong, that's a good thing, right?
Okay.
I'm saying that I don't see it. That's me. Scroll down. I'm gonna see the portfolio at the bottom.
What you looking for specifically?
lady with the baby on her back. I wanted to see what that said under the bottom.
It says
African
African lives will never matter until the economy does.
The economy does.
Choosing between people and profit. This is a Sunchild article. I think he co-wrote it. So now Sunchild is published. Choosing between people and profit. Is it time to drop the Western exploitative neoliberal model and build a pan-African pro-social collaborative economy?
Yay!
Wow.
Look at
Man, this
look
article
at
That's a
is
the
tall order
ancestors.
right there,
Watch
man.
the ancestors
Golly.
work, boy. I tell you.
It
okay.
sounds
So
good.
let's get the first. Let's get into this. Okay. In the wake of George Floyd's killing by police officers in the United States and the global movement for Black lives, there has been a resounding call to re-examine the relationship between society and state, particularly its use of violence. Yet a meaningful conversation is lacking in relation to one aspect of this failing social contract: the innate structural violence of our current global economic system. A closer look at African American history provides us an important lead that could help us start this conversation: the life and work of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I don't know if I want to read this.
It didn't start off good, did it?
Nope.
Well,
The Negro is perishing because he has no economic system.
y'all ain't talking about making their own money again.
I don't know if I want to get into this. This might be a show, Sunchild.
You know what? I mean,
Keep
This
going,
might
brother.
be a show.
we might look. We
But
already got
this is okay. I'm just gonna read more the bigger parts because
cool.
it's very long. It says an economy that is not intrinsically linked to human and environmental needs while powered by chronic debt and consumerism is not an economy at all. If anything, it is
Preach,
patently anti-economic.
Kill capitalism.
preach,
Oh man, this is kill
preach,
capitalism. Hold
Kill
on.
preach.
capitalism.
In Garvey's time and today, what we have commonly understood is, hold on. In Garvey's time and today, what we have commonly understood to be the economy is, in effect, a fraudulent paradigm masquerading as an axiom of economic value, and Western civilization has constructed and disseminated a monumental edifice of theory to assert its dominance based on this destructive model of market capitalism. I'm going to
Preach.
save this, Sunchild. I'm going to save this, right? Listen to me. I promise you, and I don't promise
Where'd
much.
you get that? You got that
I
off the Pan African
promise you.
Council?
No,
That's off the
hold
Pan
on one
African
second.
Council
That's off the Pan
site as
African
well?
Council. Huh?
That's from the
What's that?
Pan African Council site, website?
Yeah. It's under climate. I'm gonna
Okay,
read
good.
that article. I'm gonna chew that article up, and I think I'd love to have that conversation. Go ahead,
Okay.
Hits. You shared something. Oh yeah, the green wall. But you know what? I heard some negative things about this green wall. Maybe we'll get into that one day too.
Yeah, I'm
Hold
just
on,
gonna.
Let me get into the chat real quick. Hits. Chinese are behind that. Just kidding. The crazy part is that Africa emits very little greenhouse gases, but it is affected vastly compared. Yeah, it said China, Africa only emits 4% of the greenhouse gases globally, but 65% of their population are directly affected. I never looked at it that way. That's an interesting perspective. Go ahead, brother.
Just some images of, to give people a better perspective of what the diaspora may consist of, right? How many black people in the world? 2024. United States, and this excludes Africa, by the way. Just some numbers. United States about 40 million, Brazil around 15 million, Haiti around 9 million, Colombia, France, Venezuela, all looks like around 5 million. That's just to give you some idea how, we're spread out on this side of the globe also. So even though we have the most here in the United States, I'm sure if you add the rest of these countries up, and look at our I guess respective issues that we have, which I think is one of the main tenets of Pan Africanism, is that people of African descent, um, not necessarily physically unify on a single front, but to understand that we're all fighting a lot of similar issues, and that we fight them as a group and in culture and in mentality, as best we can, because we're so separated, right, outside of the African continent. All right, then I'm going to share another page, just going over some of the things you guys were talking about. So I have one about the carbon tax real quick.
Can I ask you a question, Hits?
Go ahead, bro.
Just based on the conversation, have you what is your opinion on Pan Africanism and its effectiveness for African Americans in the United States?
Well, what I found interesting in one of the definitions that I looked up was that it's based on people of African descent, and there is no timeline on that. So that was that can go back to post right after the transatlantic slave trade, when Africans were and have actively been fighting since they were removed from the continent against their oppressors, right? So
Okay.
it's definitely a long, older than 80 years old. Maybe not on an organization LLC level, or building level that Logic
Right,
wants, but
right.
and so I think a lot of us participate in it and not even know it, because we do have similar issues across the globe. People of African descent have it because the colonizers, are the ones that spread us across the globe. So a lot of the issues stem from the original um, transatlantic slave trade, right? So whether we know it or not, we do have the same issues as Black people spread around, and it does help. And you don't have a choice. Like, we don't have a choice. Like, we wouldn't be here now with able to speak on camera to each other about these topics if our ancestors just didn't fight, regardless. So they were Pan Africanists in spirit and in culture, and I think that's the main point of it. You can narrow it down to incidents, particular events, time periods, and all of that, but the goal is the same, because we all stem from that original, I think, transatlantic slave trade and colonization of Africa. But this, if you can see my screen, it's just something about carbon taxes. I believe you mentioned the African continent is the most affected by carbon. Carbon taxes are a key tool for reducing greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to global warming. However, their adoption has limited concerns, and this is the part that we're going to see with a lot of issues, or a lot of restraint that are put on things that could help us globally. Due to concerns about potential effects on economic growth, income distribution, and international competitiveness. So again, somebody's trying to make some money or stop, not have their money slowed up. So they're not going to adopt something like carbon taxes. So I'm sure if you looked into what are the highest carbon producing countries, I'm sure they pay the less or the least amount of carbon taxes without even doing that. I thought I had another. No, that's it. you know. But I think in my closing is we can look at the positives of Pan African culture and idea, and we can also look at the challenges that remain for that to be, a standard across the globe for African descendants. That's it.
Uh, I want to dope as usual, bro. I want to invite one of my favorite humans on this thing we call Earth. I call them the archives. Um, I think that Logic calls him Tupac because he is constantly set tripping, constantly bringing war to the island of Logic. And he lives to make Logic's life as difficult as possible when he is out here trying to just share some information. He can't get away from him. Logic created a channel to get away from Marcus and can't do it. So Marcus, I'm gonna let you. I call him the archives because the brother is a library unto himself. But Marcus Chilimwe, go ahead and speak, bro. You have the floor, and I'm gonna share your screen while you're talking. I mean, I'm gonna share the source that you sent me while you're talking. Go ahead, bro.
All right, peace to the panel, the guests, those what's up, and those in the chat. I just want to bring about a dynamic I think we missed. Um, African Americans aren't a country, right? They're a minority group. So there are limitations to what you can actually do with a minority group in another country without invoking um, retribution from the majority in that country. But if you look at what they do with the Caribbean countries, you can see their ideas played out. It's different, right? So you can't. There's no negotiations between a country and an individual. That just doesn't happen. So the idea that there could be some way that a country in Africa or the Caribbean can somehow or another reach their hands over here and force America to do something different, I think that's just a ridiculous scale to even attempt to say. I think that's just a ridiculous claim. We're not a country, right? We're just a specific ethnic group inside of a country. And I think we got to keep that in mind when we talk about it. I just wanted to point that out. But if you want to see more about what they're trying to do, you will see it more in the Caribbean islands and then within other countries that have um, that are predominantly controlled by the African diaspora. All right, so you don't see them doing the same thing in Britain, which also has a large African population, or Brazil, which also has a large African population. You see more so when it is an African, the diaspora country, a country controlled by the diaspora for the most part. And so I think we need to keep in mind that distinction. That's all I wanted to say. I put one source as an example, which is CARICOM, said mentioned it earlier, and the African Union, which you will see more work being done to uplift as a whole. The quote that I brass read with Dr. King, um, to give context, Dr. King was actually in Ghana when they raised the flag, and he did a speech called "The Birth of a Nation." And I think it would be good. I'm not saying you have to, but I think it would be very beneficial if you read that source. I think it may give you a better idea of what was going on at the time. And I also would like to say that the civil rights movement, because we're in America, we like to isolate it from the global movements. But if you actually look at the global scale of what was going on, and I have, of course, y'all know I got letters written between African leaders and the civil rights leaders, um, such as when Dr. King left Ghana, he went and ate lunch with CLR James, and I think they actually ate in Trinidad. I'm not sure where the meal was at. But nevertheless, let me get back to my point.
Yeah, you're just flexing at this point. But go
Um,
ahead, bro. I just love it. Go ahead, Logic. I
so
see Logic crying. Go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
so I think we just need to bring those points out. So you read that speech, "Birth of a Nation," you'll get a better idea. You look at Africa as a whole was pushing back against colonialism. You have a lot of African nations becoming independent at that time. You have Caribbean nations fighting against the crown and other European leaders. And so it's a global push in Asia, in Africa, in America. That totality brought about a change. And I'm a little concerned when you say that Africa just raised their hands and fists. I mean, that was the motion of the civil rights movement protest. So we can't minimize protesting. It wasn't a photo op. They were protesting for real, just like they were protesting in Europe over George Floyd. They were protesting in Asia over George Floyd. It was a global movement, and so I think we ought to keep just keep the context as clean as possible when we hold these discussions. Doesn't mean Pan African's perfect. They have a lot of weaknesses. There's a lot of things that I would hope they could do better, but I wouldn't go as far as some of the statements I heard today. So I just had a few moments. I just wanted to put that out there. I'm gonna go ahead and
No, I always appreciate. I mean, you don't have to leave. I always appreciate hearing from you, Marcus. I always I have to categorize you as far as like the few people I have met online. Definitely one of the most interesting and most well read people that I've ever met in life. To be honest with you, right? So like, and I think that in some ways you are making my point though, right? And I do know that, and by the way, I I try to have some fun, even though maybe this might touch on some serious topics here and there, but I try to have some fun. I don't be really meaning nothing crazy. I try not to like demean it in a certainly not the worst way, but I try to keep it somewhat clean and have some fun with it. So I said that in good fun, right? But I'm certainly not taking a personal jab at you. That's absolutely not what I would meant by it. But with that being said, man, I mean, it is a trick question, and I know it's a trick question. That's why I asked it very specifically when we had the conversation yesterday about, so how far can they go until we're looking at something that's almost treasonous, right? So you bring up some contributions that happened strategy wise 50 years ago, right? And I'm trying to bring it into our modern conversation about how we look at Pan Africanism today, and I have to I have to dig I have to dig back 50 years to realize your example, and that's a part of making my point, right? Their hands being tied as far as we're a group of individuals inside of another nation also makes my point. And I would then still be at the same question as far as unite with Africans to do what exactly is still my point. And it brings it right back full circle as far as to how far can I accomplish? I mean, as far as like what can we accomplish that's not basically inciting military action against us at that point, right? I mean, I don't like it, but as I play out all the scenarios as far as like how much can Africa contribute, how much can Africa contribute to our social woes, as far as like how far can they intervene, it would have to be something behind the scenes and very indirect, and I know it. It's a trick question. That's why I say so. Almost at to what extent are we now still leaning towards calling it pan African? You know, why we could do all the same things under African American label and still have all the same outcomes. But when you call it Pan African now it brings in to me it seems appropriate to now ask the question. So what role does Africa actually play? So you're saying if we operated under the label of African Americans trying to raise social awareness or improve our economic circumstances here in America, that Africa's now going to disassociate themselves from us because we're not under the label of Pan African. I mean, it sounds it's to me that prevents the sun childs of the world from putting too much emphasis on what Africa's actually capable of doing as far as our actual liberation in America, which I think is a good point, right? Like I actually think that that's a noble agenda, something that I'm very interested in, and I wouldn't demean, but I'm I don't see where I
30
don't
seconds.
I don't see where making it an African movement here on American soil seems to benefit what we're actually talking about. I get the whole solidarity thing. I totally get it. But we're going to unite with Africa to do what exactly?
So the
So,
question is, unite with Africa to do what exactly? Right? I'm just trying to get it. Like when you, I don't mind like
That's
y'all saying
that's the
y'all
summary.
points out, but sometimes the points get lost in what you actually, are asking. So to Marcus and then Sunchild, unite with Africa, African Americans in the United States, unite with Africa to do what exactly? If you could
so,
speak to that.
so I think this is where a misunderstanding of history comes into play, like just just a lack of knowing the intricate details to some degree of history and how things happen. So I got a book from Garfield, and I was looking for a word. I knew there was a word to it to help summarize um, some statements that had been made, but I knew there was a way that we could frame it better. And I think this is I think reading this statement may help understand my position, at least from where I see it at. And then based on what I'm gonna read, then you can see where I'm looking at the effectiveness of it. So the book is Who's Black and Why? That's the name of the book. I'm halfway through it. I'm gonna finish it probably tomorrow or Thursday for my first read and reread it. Y'all, well, everybody knows how I read. My
Yeah,
method for reading.
the archives literally.
So,
Go ahead.
so I want to talk about a statement here. I got to scroll up a little bit. This is a book. Henry Louis Gates is in there. Um, oh yeah, that's the letter. Okay. Um, so
And
you can go Sunchild while I try to find this specific word and what it means. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Sunchild.
Sunchild, you got anything? If not, I have a question from the chat. I'd like anybody on the panel to address except me. Cedric says, "What does liberation for African Americans? What? Okay, so what would liberation for African Americans look like?"
Okay, I found the word. Then I'll answer the rest of Logic's, and then
Okay,
I'll answer to Cedric's thing. So it's metonyms, METONYMS, and basically, um, you'll see what it says. So I want to put it into some type of context to you, right? He's talking about the idea of blackness. Lurking behind the framing of academic competition were two metonyms, right? You should probably, if you can, look that word up. In addition to the fact that the color black was a metonym for Africans, Black Africans themselves were undoubtedly a metonym for slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. And so metonyms are words that are closely associated with one another, in which you can say one word and have the emphasis to a global thing or a more larger thing. So I can say Washington, referring to America's politics, and I'm talking about America, that close association. And so when we look at the ide- ideological ideas, whether we want to associate ourselves with it or not, it was an anti-African, anti-Black movement. So when we look at white supremacy, when we look at racism, it's not a racism based solely on the fact that you're in America. It's a racism based on your origins. You're from that dirty continent, that unknown continent, and I'm going to get into more details with some of these ideas that developed from it, and how they still prevail today. And so I would say to address that as a whole, you would need to have a clear understanding of what Africa is and what it does, which is what Dr. King was actually trying to express in his message, the birth of a nation, explaining this cross hatching that goes on between people's perception of Africa, people's perception of blackness, and people's perception of African Americans. Um, liberation, at least for me, is just the end of uh, the effects of white supremacy uh, on my ethnic group that I belong to. I don't think, even when you look at the Pan African Congress at 1900, which was the first one, Logic, it was in 1900. That's 124 years ago. Their idea was to end scientific racism, to develop economic security, and to stop the aggression of white supremacy. That I have not moved beyond that point right there. That's all I'm saying. And I think that one of the best methods is what they attempted to do there: is scientific literacy, economic development, development of family structure, and a path forward. That's all I have to say.
Um, I wanna
Hold on,
respond.
Logic. Hold on, Logic. 1 second. Appreciate you, Archives. Let me just get into this. Remember your thought, Logic. I just want to go back into the metonyms because that's a word that I just learned actually. Um, Metonyms. What are five examples of metonym metonymy? I want to say metonymy. The metonym would be the crown. The meaning would be monarch, king, or queen. An example phrase: I swore allegiance to the crown. So a metonym. Okay, so suit is the metonym. The meaning is a business person. I'm going for a meeting with the suits from the head office. Okay, I get what that means. Okay. Gun, hired gun, right? Plays the part of a hired gun, but he means assassin. Dish, what's your favorite dish? But what they're saying is not a plate. They're saying, what's your favorite meal? Okay. Okay, that's pretty clear. Go ahead, Logic. Get to your point. And then Sunchild, if you want to share, just jump in as soon as somebody's done. Go ahead, Logic.
I like what he said, right? So my I'm gonna answer the question and then respond to Marcus. I think that's the best way for me to do it. Because
Okay.
my idea of the liberation of Black African Americans probably looks a lot more like um, it- more equal opportunity, right? I think that's probably a really broad statement, but I think opportunity is what we actually are looking to fight for because you mentioned racism and the effects of, I think you said white supremacy on our group of people, and maybe this probably isn't a popular opinion, but from the way I understand it, inequality exists everywhere. There is no civilization that doesn't have some form of inequality inside of it, and I think that that's really unfortunate, right? So when we're talking about the inequality, right, maybe we could push to a point where we're not the largest group under the thumb of the inequality, right? And that's, I would say that probably is a much more of a battle that we would tackle legally. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we still have some more windows that we could open inside of legislature that can protect us uh, to have more access to this equal treatment as far as closing the wealth gap and having a bigger opportunity to be represented in some of these higher caste systems, class levels. But racism is an idea. It's not a person, right? Like how, like there is no single one person or that you can maybe whose mind you could change or even quote unquote eliminate that would cure racism. right? And when you look at even some African countries, they still have, caste systems. There's a clear line between the haves and the have-nots in Africa, and you see similar circumstances where you have this large level of inequality versus this tribe versus that tribe, this group of people versus that group of people, and it's not solely based on the color of who the people are. And as unfortunate as that is, I think that's a reality of living on planet Earth, unfortunately, to some degree, right? Like that makes what we're actually talking about a much larger problem, right, um than just the our circumstances, unfortunately. And not to demean or to separate myself from those circumstances, but that seems to be a reality. I didn't say I liked it. I'm just trying to be honest about it, and I think being honest about that might help us develop some more substantial solutions. I'm done. You're muted.
Yeah. So so I think we've said enough to express the accomplishments of Pan Africanism and and from both ways, from the diaspora benefiting the continent and vice versa. I think we've made that case clear on the accomplishments of Pan Africanism, whether it's the issues with the Pan African Congress.
You know what's really funny about that? I'm actually glad that you back, man, because we began to read an article
When your mic
on
comes back in, just get back in, Central. Go ahead, Logic.
we began to read an article on that Pan African website that basically said that they were trying to dismantle capitalism. I mean, what is a better covert way of saying that we are trying to, that America is actually the enemy?
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
unfortunately, we benefit from capitalism.
Are you guys hearing me or no?
Yeah, we can hear you now. You cut out for a second.
Okay. Yeah. Well, capitalism, I think that's like a whole nother subject, because I think it was Cedric who says the Pan African Council cannot be seen is can be seen as a capitalist institution, and they support capitalist ventures. So I think we can look at it from both ends, where the question can become, can Africa and the planet itself sustain itself for how long under this capitalist industrialism? So at some point we'll have to actually come to grips with the
Did he cut out again?
Sunchild got a self timeout button.
Yeah, I think he timed out again.
It's
It's
like
probably
every
his,
Can
30
you hear me
it's
now?
probably his hat.
every 30
Yeah, we
seconds.
can hear you now. Every 30
Probably that
seconds
hat
it
he
just
got
it just
on.
cuts out. About every 30
Yeah.
seconds it just stops.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we can look at it both ways, where Pan Africanism is working within a capitalist framework, but I think they're saying that ultimately we will have to deal with the issues of capitalism in the long run, and how long can the planet, especially Africa, sustain what's happening globally or climate wise to especially Africa, where they're taking the brunt of it, and they'll have to address that sooner or later, and the planet itself will have to address issues of capitalism and climate change, because we can't just ignore the two, and for how much longer. But for now they have to, and they are working within the capitalist framework as best as they can. But I think that we have made the argument for the accomplishments of the Pan African institution quite clear, and I don't think that we can argue that anymore, whether it's from Africa to the diaspora or diaspora to Africa. For example, the Black Lives Matter issue here in America influenced the Black Lives Matter issue in South Africa as well, and in other African nations that were dealing with police brutality. And we can see that there has been a change both there and here, perhaps, right? And even the OAU spoke out against the the treatment of George Floyd and other blacks at the hands. And there's actually within the OAU in the 1964 convention of the OAU. They had what's called a resolution on racial discrimination in the United States of America, made by heads of state in the government in Africa in 1964. This was a resolution of the OAU convention. So they have had the African American agenda on the OAU plate for quite some time, and it has been influential. Now, who's to say with the effect that China is having now, where Africa is more open to China, doing business with China as they are to the US, to the US, that these issues aren't playing a part in that. And now we're seeing that the US is now having to go back in and make, are you guys still hearing me? That the US is now going back in and trying to kiss up to the Africans in order to get back on par with them on a business level. Who's to say that these issues aren't playing a part in the African minds of who they're doing business with? And who's to say the Chinese, when they go into Africa and they are, talking to the African leaders, that they can simply say, look, why would you do a business with America? Look at the way they're treating African Americans. And that might be an influence with the Africans there. And this is what America is probably having to deal with when they go into Africa. They're saying, well, why would we do business with you if you can't even treat your citizens of African descent properly? We're just going to do business with China or Russia. And who's to say Russia and China aren't using these arguments as leverage? Right? So I would see those even as evidence for Pan-Africanism affecting us in ways that we don't even know. Right, but again, I don't want to talk too long. I would just say I think we've laid out the case for the accomplishments of Pan-Africanism that is undeniable, but I think it's more so the potentials are still there for even more that can be done, especially on the case for climate change and so on. I think Africa has to perhaps take the lead in that, because apparently the European nations are really not doing what they need to be doing. So someone has to step up. And it's probably Africa, since they're the ones who are being affected the most. And that's perhaps where Pan-Africanism hopefully can make a change. But I'll stop there.
I'm gonna give everybody. Hold on. I'm gonna give everybody the opportunity to make a closing statement. We right at the 2-hour mark. I just want to answer Cedric's question, and then y'all can speak to Sunchild, and then whatever you want to say, but it'll be the closing statement. Complete equality has never existed in human society. Historical and contemporary examples demonstrate varying degrees of egalitarianism. Societies continue to strive toward greater equality through social, political, and economic reform. So I think that's a good point, Cedric. It's never been equal.
Yeah.
So to strive for something that's never been is a little wild. So Marcus, I'm gonna leave with you.
Okay.
Speak to whatever you want to say with that, and then make your closing statement.
So this is a common thing, and I don't know how to deal with it, and that is logic likes to change words. I just don't get it. I didn't mention equality. I said white supremacy and scientific racism. And then he argued about equality. That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. I said that my concern, what we're talking about is scientific racism, right? And white supremacy. That is the dehumanizing effects on Black people. And I showed you a source that says that when you say Black, at least historically, it is talking about African. They're associated with each other. And we have documented evidence that that's exactly what happened. No one mentioned equality except for logic. So, said you right. There's never been a society that did not have equality, and the speculation that hunter gatherers didn't have had equality. What is really said is they were more egalitarian. I can never pronounce that word. Um, than modern society and so forth and so on. They were more equal, right? There's a study out
Okay.
about African American households versus other ethnic groups in America, and African American households were more whatever that word is, more equal, at least in some respects. So, nevertheless, my point is that I understand that there's going to be some forms of unequal treatment, or at least where everyone won't be exactly the same. I don't believe in fairy tales. Um, but that doesn't mean that it has to be based on the color of my skin or my ethnic origin. That it doesn't have to be based on that. And that idea has become and is very, very dangerous to the success of African Americans and Africans of the diaspora and Africans on the continent. And we can see that being played out. Don't let me take some of these statements that have been made recently by certain politicians. We have one in Europe who was talking about we need to matter of fact, who was it, Brass? You remember I posted that article where he was talking about we need to recolonize Africa, as if that stuff isn't
Yeah,
still a threat.
the head of Blackstone. He's not a politician, but the head of
Yeah,
Blackstone.
the head of Blackstone,
Hmm.
right? So these are some things that we're concerned about. I posted an article about what they did in Montana today about the anti-climate bill they just passed. We got schools being defunded. We got a lot of problems in America that need our focus. Our focus. We need to be aware of them. But there are problems unique to us in America. That may not be the same problem that Cedric may face. And so I wouldn't expect a single program to address every individual of the diaspora, every ethnic group of the diaspora, every country of the diaspora. I think that what we can do is when we need assistance in bringing global awareness, we can help each other in that way,
Okay,
which
appreciate
is
you, Marcus. Go ahead,
which
finish your
hold
point.
on, which is as documented the origins of Pan Africans said. And I think we've maybe have gotten further away from that than necessary. But that's society, that's human beings being human. And I expect that. So I just want to leave y'all with that. I'm gonna continue listening to everybody's final word.
I put up the article that Marcus was talking about. It's Eric Prince, and if you look up Eric Prince, he's been trying to colonize something or another for the past 25 years with Blackstone. He is at the Conservative PAC conference this 2023 in Maryland, and just to give you a bit of an idea, really look him up. He's a very interesting guy. Here are Prince's exact words. It says, if so many of these countries around the world are incapable of governing themselves, it's time for us to just put the imperial hat back on, to say we're going to govern these countries, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded. You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves. Yep, he's a colonizer. But that's pretty much the colonization handbook. He's a wild. Oh, Eric Prince is wild. That's a tough statement, man. No, that's tough.
I'm sorry, Brass. Let me tell y'all something. 15, 18 years ago, in Pennsylvania, a sitting Congress member of Pennsylvania said if we hold a secret vote right now to re-enslave Africans, Americans,
Oh yeah, I
it
remember
would
that.
pass with flying colors.
Yeah.
That's in Pennsylvania here. So I'm not saying that Pan Africanism is perfect. Be it far from me to ever say that. It has a lot of mistakes, but I think the characterization that's going on is a misrepresentation of what we're discussing. The conscious community does not represent Pan Africanism. Most of the conscious community do not like the African Union. They don't feel as though they're radical enough. Most of them do not appreciate W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Martin Delany. They do mention Martin Delany because he attempted to decipher the metanetter. That's another story I ain't never get into. Nevertheless, so they're not a representation of all Pan Africanism. So I think you need to make that distinction. Say these people here are wild, and then argue with them.
That's a good point. Sunchild, you got any closing remarks? Any comments?
I don't know. I think I've said enough, brother. Thank you for having me on. Thank you to Brother Chill and everyone else on the panel. Brother Logic, peace to you. Brass, peace, and everyone else. Peace and love.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Hits, and then we'll close with Logic. Hits, you got anything? Did you ever get a chance to fix Trail's issue or no?
No, I didn't see him come back in the chat.
No, he tried to. It just keeps saying device disconnected. But
Yeah,
you got
he's gonna
anything
have
on?
to hit us in the Discord, like, and then we can fix it one day.
Okay, no problem.
I'm sure it ain't a big deal. But no, thanks to the panel, for everybody who came up, talk about it. Good topic. Thanks to the people in the chat for stopping through, hanging out with us. We always we're always gonna have a lot of work to do. Whether it's black people or humans in general. So this is it's always work to be done. Um that's it, man. It's definitely, a good topic. I think if we narrow it down some more next time, maybe pick a subject in the topic,
Mm-hmm.
and we can, share some more information on it, whether it's just Pan-Africanism here in America, the African Union, uh a time frame would be helpful,
Okay.
or some key figures, and just go over some work that people have done or are trying to do right now. So definitely a good topic, though. Appreciate it, Logic.
Okay. Logic, take us home.
For sure, man. Marcus, I definitely appreciate you coming in and contributing, bro. I definitely have learned a lot from you. We'll learn more from you, man. We always enjoy these conversations. Sunchild, it was a good conversation, man. I actually, your source gave me the most ammunition I had, most of the night, for real, for real. But it's still interesting, right? And the question to me still remains: what role will Africa play in this? Because even Marcus's very well thought out idea of what a liberated African American looks like. He spoke about ending the dehumanization here in America. What role could Africa play in such a thing? They don't have the ability to vote. They can't come over here and wield any power. That question still remains to me as far as that, right? I personally understand what he's saying. I just am like I reach a point where my my agenda is more about clarity, right? Like and I think that trying to re-educate everyone on what the classical form of Pan-Africanism does not unwind modern Pan-Africanism, right? I don't think that we'll ever get a united effort to now return back to this old Pan-Africanism that nobody seems to really be that familiar with. And that's what I kind of want to not be an obstacle for us, to not feel like there's some looming big brother or looming reservoir of protection or resources that we also have access to that we can tap into that'll help further any of our social agendas here in America. That's my focus, and when I want to talk about this conversation and be able to shed some light on, or at least maybe just be able to ask the question of what role does Africa actually play? You know, what do we expect to get from Africa by calling our movement Pan-Africanism when all of the things that we're actually trying to affect are here in America, and all the resources that we plug into are things in America. All the legislation that we benefit or that we're looking to change are stuff that are here in America, and Africa has no power to do anything about that.
I appreciate your candor. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate everybody for checking it out. I'm going to give you some flowers, Logic. You came up with this topic last night. You prepared for this topic this morning, put a format together, and I think it's going to be a pretty highly viewed show. So I gotta applaud you for that. I think you did an amazing job right there. So on that note, it's
One
been
last
another
thing. One last thing. I put the PDF for that book that Marcus mentioned in the Pseudo Killers Discord chat. Who what is it? Who's Black and Why? I think that's the title of the book. So that's in the Discord. And Who's Black and Why? Yeah, it's a PDF. I just got the book offline and just converted it. So that's
always with the technological genius. Always with the subtle flexes. I appreciate it.
PDF, man.
Well, no, yeah, it's just a PDF. You know, I just got it offline. You know, I don't understand anything that you're saying. But moving forward, I appreciate everybody. Try Media Innovations in the building. It's been another good one. Once again, thank you, Sunchild. Thank you, Archives, and thank you, Tiffany French. Make sure y'all support her channel, Tiffany89. I think she might be live. I think that'll be fire. And thank you guys for all your participation, Cedric, Ramon, Thurman, Montrell. I appreciate all of you guys, man. Just keep checking us out. Adrian, be patient with us. We building this at a crock pot just to make sure that it's right, not necessarily on the air fryer. So, you know, that was actually pretty creative.
Africa unite.
Africa unite. You just ruined it all. Check us out. Peace to you, DQ. Hit the link for the Kush Company.
Playing maze, system water bottles and Gatorade. A lot of people want me to fade away. Dedicated, keep my game sharp as a razor blade. Day to day, with my gold team